Good morning, or in some cases, good evening. Good to see you all. This is our continuation of the illumination of the intent. We have a couple of new participants. Some didn't realize the course was may go on for a couple of years because the Shantideva Center advertisement says a 3-month course or something like that. So, yeah, so we will be doing that. Let me just see here. I want to see all of you. Here we go. So we're going to begin where we left off in December, but first we're going to say some prayers and do a little meditation as we have been doing. So if you'd like to sit comfortably and follow along, you can either mute yourself and follow along as I'm reading, or just read. So first of all, the most important thing at the beginning is to generate the proper motivation. So we take refuge, which sort of delineates us from non-Buddhists, makes taking refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and generating bodhicitta, which delineates us, our practice, from that of the lesser vehicle. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. Through the collections I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all migrators. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. Through the collections I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all migrating beings. I'm just changing sentient beings because the Tibetan text says drola. Droa means migrators. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. What that means is a special Mahayana refuge, different than the general Hinayana refuge, which includes taking refuge to the Arya Sangha, which the Bodhisattva Aryas, which the Hinayana doesn't accept. Through the collections I create through listening to the Dharma, that means the collection of merits and the collection of wisdom, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all migrating beings. By offering this ground, anointed with perfume and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, 4 continents, the sun and moon, visualized as a Buddha realm, may all migrators enjoy such a pure realm. And then you have to, there you go. O holy and perfect pure Lama, from the clouds of compassion that form in the skies of your Dharmakaya wisdom, please send down a rain of vast and profound Dharma, precisely in accordance with the needs of those to be trained. Idam Guru Radna Mandalakam Niryatayami. And as we're beginning another session, Shankar, could you put up the foundation of good qualities?
Yes, I'm sorry. Let me just get it real quick.
Okay, we can do that after the meditation. So let's meditate while Shankar's searching for that. Sit comfortably. Spine straight. What we're going to do to begin is to try to curtail any kind of continuum of worldly thoughts that we're having, conceptualization, by watching our breathing, which is a very common meditation in all of Buddhism. So just Be aware of your breathing, respiration, without controlling it. Recognize when you're breathing in and when you're breathing out. Once you've recognized the breathing, you focused on that, hold it in mindfulness. Mindfulness is a mental factor that only arises once you've cognized something so that you can keep it in mind. So once you've recognized the breathing, hold it in mindfulness to the exclusion of everything else. If other thoughts arise, recognizing them, take your attention away from them and invest that energy instead in watching the breathing. If you feel tension in your body or any awkwardness, imagine for 2 or 3 breaths, breathing in the inspiration of the Buddhas in the form of white light, and breathing out your tension, uncomfortable states of mind in the form of black smoke. Then, having calmed your mind from some gross distractions like that, bring your attention to your mental consciousness, that entity within which you think and you plan, you remember. And watch your consciousness as though one part of the mind watching the rest, like a spy in the corner of the room. If you're familiar with the conventional nature of the mind, its clear light nature, you can immediately bring back a remembering consciousness of that. If not, try to construct it mental image of the clarity of your mind by watching the thoughts and recognizing that they are not the very nature of your mind. That if you take your attention away from the thoughts, they begin to decrease in intensity and frequency. What you should be focusing on instead is the space between the thoughts, the clear light nature of the mind within which the thoughts arise, from which they emerge, and into which they dissolve again. It's not something you see with your eyes. It's something that you begin to develop a mental image of through watching the mind. Its lack of any obstruction to thoughts arising, no obstruction to their leaving, no sort of headwind or friction to the thoughts leaving. It's called clear light for various reasons. It's a consciousness, so it illuminates, it knows its objects. And it's clear in this sense now, in that there's no obstructions within it. None of the delusions, anger, attachment, ignorance, pride, jealousy, low self-esteem, and so forth, none of them are the nature of the clear light nature of the mind. They are just adventitious, accidental occurrences within the otherwise pristine, clear light nature of our mind. Within this mind, we can develop all good qualities that we now lack, certainly enhance those that we do have, some little bit of now. We can eliminate all the faults, our selfishness, our anger, our attachment, without exception. They can be totally eradicated from our mind to the point where we become maybe a valid base to be called a person without allegiances to one side or the other, not favoring our friends and trying to find retribution against our enemies. The fact that we can recognize this clear light nature, which is also called the developmental Buddha nature, the conventional Buddha nature. The reason that we can recognize this now is that we have this auspicious moment of a life of leisure and endowment, which has come about because of virtuous practice in other lives. We're born at a time when the Dharma wheel has been turned by the Buddha. It still exists, still realizable. There are communities of practitioners, both monastic and lay, to support us, teachers, benefactors. Recognizing this, as the Buddha mentioned in so many sutras, was a first step of recognizing we don't have to adhere to the standards of the world, success, We don't have to become wealthy, popular, and so forth. But we can use this life, this very short life of leisure and endowment, to work for our own ultimate happiness and to work for the happiness of all sentient beings by developing empathy for them, recognizing our plight in cyclic existence is shared by all beings. Not only that, they have all been in previous lives and will be in future lives close to us. They have been our mothers numberless times in the past, have been depthlessly kind. And for that reason, we owe them a debt of gratitude that we can repay by leading them out of suffering into stable happiness. To do that, we have to become ourselves evolved. We have to become free of our faults. We have to develop all the good qualities. And that requires understanding the teachings and then applying them in our lives. So with the thought to eventually be able to benefit all living beings in an ultimate way, I'm going to listen to the teachings today. I'm going to meditate when necessary. I'm going to contemplate the meanings, weigh the meanings, in order to accumulate the collections of merit and wisdom, in order to achieve Buddhahood, so that I can spontaneously and effortlessly bring about the happiness of all sentient beings, or release them from cyclic existence, take them out of cyclic existence and place them in the stable, everlasting happiness of enlightenment. I'm going to listen to the teachings in order to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. And then relax your mind. Any, oops, I already appeared.
Venerable, do you want me to put up the foundation of all good qualities?
Yes, we're going to, at the beginning of not every session, not every week, but at the beginning of a series, we'll recite this famous text by Lama Khapa, Foundation of All Good Qualities. The foundation of all good qualities is the kind and perfect guru. Correctly following the guru is the root of the path. By my clearly seeing this and applying great effort, please bless me to rely on the guru with great respect. When I have discovered that the precious freedom of this rebirth is found only once, you know what that means. Found only once means so rare to find one. It's almost as though the first time in a long time that one has a life of leisure and endowment. When I have discovered that the precious freedom of this rebirth is found only once, is extremely difficult to find again, and is greatly meaningful, please bless me to unceasingly generate the mind, taking its essence day and night. This body and life are changing like a water bubble, Remember how quickly they perish and death comes. And after death, just like a shadow follows the body, the results of black and white karma, negative and positive karma, follow, just like a shadow follows the body. When I have found definite conviction in this, the law of cause and effect, please bless me to always be conscientious in abandoning even the slightest collection of shortcomings, abandoning even the smallest of negativities, and accomplishing all virtuous deeds. When I have recognized the shortcomings of samsaric perfections, that there is no satisfaction in enjoying them, that the pursuit of them is the door to all suffering, and that they cannot be trusted, please bless me to generate a strong wish for the bliss of liberation. Through my being led by this pure thought, with great mindfulness, alertness, and conscientiousness, please bless me to make keeping the individual liberation vows, the root of the teachings, my essential practice. Then, just as I have fallen into the sea of samsara, as I'm struggling within this ocean of cyclic existence, so are all other mother transmigratory beings. By seeing this, please bless me to train in supreme bodhicitta, which bears the responsibility of freeing migrators from cyclic existence. Even if I develop mere bodhicitta, without familiarizing myself in the three types of morality, the Mahayana, three types of Mahayana morality of abstaining from negativities, collecting virtuous dharmas, and benefiting sentient beings. If I don't familiarize myself, if I don't cultivate these, I cannot achieve enlightenment. So just mere bodhicitta, wishing bodhicitta alone is not enough. Seeing this well, please bless me to keep the vow of the sons of the victorious ones, the Jina Putra, the bodhisattvas, with fervent effort. By my having pacified distractions to wrong objects and correctly analyzed the meaning of reality, please bless me to quickly generate within my mind stream the unified path of calm abiding and special insight. When I have thus become a suitable vessel by training in the common path, the sutra path, please bless me to immediately enter the holy gateway of the fortunate beings, the supreme of all vehicles, the Vajrayana. Yana means vehicle, right? At that time, the basis of accomplishing the two attainments is keeping my vows and samayas purely. When I have gained effortless conviction in this, please bless me to protect them even at the cost of my life. Then, when I have realized exactly the vital points of the two stages, means the generation stage of highest yoga tantra and the completion stage, the essence of all the tantric sets, and am enjoying the yoga of 4 sessions with effort without being distracted by non-meditation objects, please bless me to accomplish these in accordance with the teachings of the holy beings. Thus, may the virtuous friends who reveal the noble path and the spiritual practitioners who correctly accomplish it along with me have long lives. Please bless me to pacify completely the collections of outer and inner obstacles. In all my lives, may I never be separated from perfect gurus. May I enjoy the magnificent Dharma, and by completing the qualities of the grounds, the Bodhisattva grounds and paths, may I quickly attain the state of Vajradhara. Oh, a good review. So good to see you. We have a couple of new faces. Wolfgang is in Stuttgart. Toby is, even though his nice British accent is in outside of Atlanta. Who else is here? Patrick, you've been here before, right? Patrick Weldon?
No, this is my first time.
Your first time. Where are you, Patrick?
I'm in Colorado Springs.
Okay, good to have you.
Thank you.
Melvin Horton. I don't remember Melvin. Melvin, where are you? Maybe he's okay. KT Rush. Have you been here before?
No. KT Rush from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Hello. Greetings.
Greetings to Milwaukee. And I think everyone else. Cornelius Queen, where are you?
Hi, I'm in Brooklyn, New York at present. Nice to meet you all.
Yes, nice to have you here. And Carl, where are you? Or Carol?
Caro, I'm in Weehawken, New Jersey.
Wow, okay. In the heart of America. And Manuel, I'm not sure where Manuel is. Maybe south of the border. Maybe not. Okay, nice to have you here. So we're going to continue with our classes on Lama Tsongkhapa's great text called Illumination of the Intent, Gompa Rapsel, which we began some time ago. Those of you who are just coming in, you might like to listen to some of the earlier recordings, or you can just follow along. We have some time to go before we reach the 6th chapter, which is the main chapter on emptiness, the 6th Bhumi. Right now, we're still talking about the 1st Bhumi. And before we begin, does anyone have any questions from leftover from before? We're all okay? Okay. So with the advice of some of my Dharma friends, remind you that on the written text, we're about page 85. If you have the book, and in Jeffrey Hopkins' text, at the end of page 156. And if you have a digital edition of the text, which those of you who may not have the text yet, you can get the digital edition to put on your computer or iPad or whatever. I'm going to read a couple of lines here so that you can do a search and find where we are, because the pagination of the digital copy, of course, varies how big your screen is and which size you make the font and everything. So I'm going to read a couple of lines from before. If you want to search for the words, in the view of the above, comma, it is definitely incorrect to explain these lines. Wonder if that's enough for you to search in your digital copy. In view of the above, comma, it is definitely incorrect to explain these lines. Okay. So I'm going to go back to about that point where we were, we talked before. Thank you. So a little bit earlier, there is a quotation. Oops, sorry. So we're talking about Shantideva's text, the Bodhisattva Charyavatara. There's a quotation in Jimpa's text. It says, if one is freed through elimination of the afflictions, then it should happen immediately afterwards. Jeffrey translates it as, through abandoning the afflictions, there is liberation. That's sort of like a statement of the Hinayana. their idea is that you don't need to realize emptiness. You just have to realize the selflessness of the person. This is the Hinayana position. Shantideva's response to that is, then immediately thereafterwards, it's extinguishment or the elimination of the afflictions would occur. So this is, the point of this is trying to counter the idea of the Hinayana that the emptiness and so forth is not necessary. All you have to do is realize the selflessness of persons. Everything below prasangika of the Madhyamaka, the philosophical schools, everything below except that the possibility of achieving liberation in some way by realizing the selflessness of the person. It's only prasangika that says it's not possible even to achieve nirvana, liberation, unless you realize emptiness. So I'm just gonna read a little bit more through there quickly, which we had finished last class, but just to sort of make a connection. Here the line, if one is freed through elimination of the afflictions, presents the opponent's position. It's more like a statement, you know. The meaning of this line should be explained in the same sense as the line, it's through seeing the truth one is freed. So that was a line in Shantideva's text that came earlier. This section, so what Lama Tsongkhapa is doing here is quoting Shantideva's Bodhisattva Charyavatara. Did Chandrakirti quote Bodhisattva Charyavatara? Does anyone know? Mikhail, do you know? Well, there's Paul, what do you think? Could he have quoted Shantideva?
No, it would not be possible because Chandrakirti was before Shantideva.
Right. So Lama Tsongkhapa introducing Shantideva's text here is sort of like an addendum to his commentary on Chandrakirti, sort of verifying this through other, you know, the greatly respected holy being Shantideva's text. So earlier in the text, it said that sort of the Hinayana position is one is freed, one is liberated, you know, one achieves nirvana through seeing the truth, seeing the truth or the truths, meaning the Four Noble Truths, mainly from the Hinayana point of view, that centering on the selflessness of the person. Okay, so the meaning of this line should be explained in the same sense as the line that was given earlier from the Hinayana point of view. It's that seeing the truths one is freed. In terms of the query, if one becomes free from the afflictions through the path seeing the Four Noble Truths and their 16 attributes, their 16 characteristics, such as impermanence. This is because the context here is about whether freedom from the afflictions can be attained through the path of the 16 characteristics alone. That this is so is clear from the argument in the line, it's through seeing the truths. So what is this saying? Hinayana position is that the main object that a person on the path of accumulation that wants to achieve the path of seeing, whether it be the Hinayana path or whatever, the main thing that they're doing is they're looking at the Four Noble Truths and their 16 characteristics. Remember, the first noble truth has 4 characteristics: impermanence, suffering, selfless, and empty. And they take the main of those 16 attributes. So there's 4 attributes or 4 characteristics for each of the truths, 4 times 4 is 16. And they take that, the main one is realizing the selflessness of the person in the sense that a person is devoid of a self-supporting, substantially existent person. That's their position. And it's through that one achieves achieves liberation. So continuing, if one becomes free from the afflictions through the path seeing the Four Noble Truths and their 16 characteristics, such as impermanence, this is because the context here is about whether freedom from the afflictions can be attained through the path of the 16 characteristics of impermanence alone. Their position, Hinayana position, is that alone is enough to achieve freedom from the afflictions. Before it was talking about liberation. Freedom from the Prasangika point of view, freedom from the afflictions and liberation is the same thing. If you're completely free of them so that they'll never come back, if you've ceased the afflictions, you've achieved liberation. In view of the above, it is definitely incorrect to explain these lines as an approach whereby, while accepting the afflictions can be eliminated through the path of the 16 characteristics, 16 attributes, such as impermanence alone, just through that alone, one can achieve liberation. One still maintains that this path cannot bring freedom from all suffering. The correct meaning intended here is this: when those afflictions defined in common with the two Shravaka schools, what are the two Shravaka schools? Anyone have an idea? Nadine, do you know what the two Shravaka schools are?
Vaibhashika and Chandrakirti.
Yeah, in fact, I just remember, I think we might have mentioned that last time. So it's not a misprint. You might have thought, oh, maybe it meant the Shravakas and Pratika Buddhas, but it's the two Shravaka schools. When those afflictions defined in common with the two Shravaka schools, Vaibhashika and Chandrakirti, temporarily cease to manifest for some practitioners because they generated the path of the Four Noble Truths and the 16 characteristics described above. If this were to truly constitute freedom from the afflictions, then such persons should attain total cessation of all contaminations immediately after such a temporary elimination of the manifest afflictions. Such is not the case, however. This is how the opponent's position is refuted here. That such a consequence cannot be accepted is explained in the following. So what is it saying? There are practitioners of the Hinayana who meditate on the 16 aspects of the Four Noble Truths. They achieve some kind of spiritual attainment, but what the Mahayana is, what the Prasangika especially is saying here, is that their attainment is a mere subduing of the afflictions. They will come back again because they have not actually realized emptiness. They've only realized a gross selflessness of persons, the lack of a self-supporting, substantially existent person. All of their, if they had actually achieved liberation, nirvana, all of their contaminated states of mind should be eliminated, and they should not have any other consequences of that. So the text continues, though they possess no afflictions, one sees in them the potency of karma. This is the next line in another line in Shantideva's text. So we're quoting now, Lama Tsongkhapa is quoting texts, stanzas from Shantideva's text, refuting the Hinayana position that you can achieve liberation simply by realizing the selflessness of persons according to their tenets. So the commentary, Lama Tsongkhapa says, although such practitioners possess no manifest afflictions, remember when they, so even non-Buddhists, by achieving the first concentration of the form realm, the second concentration, and so forth, up until the concentrations of the formless realm, they can cause the manifest afflictions of the desire realm to disappear. That means the seeds of the afflictions are still there, but the afflictions, anger, attachment, and so forth, of the desire realm are not manifesting. So it seems like, that's a great thing. It's almost like you're getting close to liberation. You're becoming a liberated person. In addition to that, by meditating on the 16 aspects of the Four Noble Truths, Hinayana style, you can cause not only those manifest afflictions to decrease also, but you can cause the manifest afflictions of the highest of the form realms, which is called the peak of cyclic existence. You can cause those also to disappear. They're not manifest. That's something that the mundane vipassana cannot do. Remember what mundane vipassana and supramundane vipassana means? The wisdom consciousness, special insight. Mundane vipassana sees the advantages of the first concentration and the defects of the desire realm, and by meditating on that with analysis, one can actually separate one's mind from the afflictions of the desire realm and reach a mind of the first concentration. One can do that all the way up to eventually to the peak of cyclic existence, but there's nothing above the peak of cyclic existence other than nirvana and so forth, so that through the mundane path, which is common to even Hindu practitioners and so forth, one can cause a disappearance of the manifest afflictions of everything except the peak of cyclic existence through the meditation on the 16 aspects of the Four Noble Truths. One can even cause those manifest afflictions to disappear. So that's certainly an advantage, but you are not free of cyclic existence, because even if you achieve those states, say you have realized the gross selflessness of person through the Hinayana path, you still have not eliminated the karmic imprints from your mind. You have not eliminated actually the subtlemost imprints that can cause you to generate attachment, hatred, anger, jealousy, and so forth, ignorance in the future, so that you will be reborn again within cyclic existence. You haven't found actual liberation. Although such practitioners possess no manifest afflictions, right? They've caused all the manifest afflictions of the desire realm, the form and formless realm to not be apparent. A potency to propel future births can still be discerned. Thus, these lines from the Bodhisattva Charyavatara, Guide to the Bodhisattva Way, should be explained in the above way. Some Indian commentaries, as well as some Tibetans, interpret these lines as follows. They interpret it incorrectly. Although Maudgalyana and Arya Nagarjuna and the like do not possess afflictions, one can see in them the result of karma accumulated by causing suffering when they were ordinary beings, and thus they do not attain freedom immediately. So you have to think about it. You have to read these sections again and again to see what is actually being meant here. Maudgalyana was one of the Buddha's two disciples, main disciples, who achieved arhatship, right? When even after he achieved arhatship, so that he was, Prasangika would say that he actually was an arhat. He did realize nirvana through the meditation on emptiness, not just on the selflessness of persons. Even afterwards, in the last portion of his life, he was beaten by other non-Buddhists for having said that he saw through his clairvoyance that their teacher was born in hell, right? Can you imagine that would be like a great criticism of your tradition if you said that following this tradition, the non-Buddhist tradition of Jains or something, that the teacher who you revered as your guide and so forth was actually born in hell. So the disciples were very angry and they beat Madhyamaka until he was almost dead. And so one can, in Shantideva's statement, when he says one sees in them the potency of karma, some think that means the potency of karma to bring suffering in this lifetime. That's not the meaning. Potency of karma to bring a future rebirth. Because according to Prasangika, even when you achieve actual nirvana, you can still have physical misfortunes. You can be killed, you can be beaten, you can be abused and so forth as a result of the karmic instincts that are still in your mind, but your mind is totally in nirvana. Remember the story I've mentioned several times when the Buddha had a fever and the monks had him on a bed and were putting cold compresses on him. They asked how he felt. He said, there are great waves of pain coursing through the Buddha's body, speaking of himself in the third person, but his mind is at rest. So it's the Prasangika position that you can have the ripening of karma while you still have this body after achieving enlightenment, after achieving nirvana, but that you will have no mental suffering as a result of that. So some Indian commentaries as well as some Tibetans interpret these lines as follow. Although Maudgalyana and Arya Angulimala and the like do not possess afflictions, so they were accepted as being Aryas, accepted as being Arhats, the results of a karma accumulated by causing suffering when they were ordinary beings, one can see in them the results of karma accumulated by causing suffering when they were ordinary beings, and thus they do not attain freedom immediately. That's not the meaning. That's not the correct meaning, because Buddhism says they have achieved freedom immediately because they've become arhats. Okay, so this is where we ended last class. This interpretation is incorrect. Here, the potency to produce suffering within this lifetime is not the issue, right? We accept that there can be suffering within this lifetime for someone who's become an arhat. It is the potency of karma to propel future rebirths that's being talked about. There is no true freedom if this is not ceased. The potency of karma to bring future rebirths. This is how the text should be explained. Okay, so now new territory. Again, one reads, and again, this is from the Bodhisattvacharya Avatara, either verse 48 or 49. Jimpa quotes, says this is the chapter 9, verse 48. Hopkins says it's chapter 9, verse 49. So maybe different numbering, I don't know. So the statement in the Bodhisattvacharya Avatara is, like the meditative attainment of no perception, the mind divorced from emptiness, though ceased, will rise again. So we alluded a little bit to that last time. The attainment of non-perception. Jeffrey translates this, though an afflicted mind lacking meditation on emptiness is halted, it is again produced as in the case of absorption of non-discrimination, or what did Jim call it, non-perception. What this is talking about is a particular kind of meditation that you can achieve at the peak of cyclic existence, you know, in the highest of the formless realms, when through the mundane path, you can cause a temporary cessation of the gross mind gross, what does he call it? He calls perception, or what do we call discrimination. You can cause the mind essentially to cease. And it's only through deep imprints in the mind that the mind will occur again. Even after that, like the meditative attainment of non-perception, the mind divorced from emptiness, though ceased, will rise again. Snehi, you have a question. I don't want to go too long without answering.
Thank you. It is still on this point, Venerable George. So, in the quote where it says, though they possess no afflictions, one sees in them the potency of karma. And as you were saying, the subtle imprints remain, but just the way it's phrased as in one sees or it can be discerned, it's almost like you would have to have like a clairvoyant mind to make that, to come to that conclusion.
Well, what it means is that one can see that they, well, you might say that, one can see that they are reborn again within cyclic existence. If they were not reborn again in cyclic existence, they would have actually achieved nirvana, right? But and I think you're right. You would have to assume that this requires some kind of clairvoyance to know where their mind stream went. But that kind of clairvoyance is not beyond the other arhats, actual beings who have achieved the state of arhatship. Even some Aryas with clairvoyance can tell where a mind stream has taken rebirth, right? The clairvoyance that knows the past and future lives of sentient beings. So those beings with clairvoyance, those who don't have that kind of clairvoyance or who are not arhats cannot see. They might assume that someone who has died was not reborn, but those with clairvoyance could see that. I think that's the meaning of why it's said there, one sees in them the potency of karma. Jeffrey says they are seen to have rebirth by the power of actions. That would mean that seeing is done by someone with clairvoyance. Otherwise, you wouldn't know. Some little baby is born. How can you say that was someone's reincarnation? You'd have to have clairvoyance to do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I just want to make sure I'm understanding it correctly, in the sense that the Prasankita masters who assert that, you need emptiness, you need to realize emptiness for nirvana, are saying that, to arhats who believe that they just need to realize selflessness of people and will attain nirvana, that their basis for making the statement is they must have clairvoyance to see that those arhats still have subtle imprints left of afflictions.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay,
Right. So it's more or less the same as we're saying here, that, say, for instance, there was some great abbot of Nalanda Monastery who was revered by the monks. And after he passed away, and the monks assumed that he had achieved nirvana, one other very highly realized monk at Nalanda encountered a preta in one of the temples where tormas were being offered. So the preta was there to get some bounty, right? And this highly clairvoyant monk at Nalanda asked the preta who he was, and he said, "I'm the reincarnation of the abbot. That's me." And it's as a result of that, it's as a result of my not having practiced, having misused the resources of the Sangha, that I was reborn here. He had not achieved actual nirvana, let alone enlightenment, but he was, as a result of that karma, he was reborn, and this was something that could be seen with the actual, you have to have a certain degree of clairvoyance to be able to see pretas, right? Only some individuals with some karmic imprints from previous lives that haven't developed clairvoyance might be able to see pretas, but this monk was able to see this preta who verified that he was the reincarnation of the abbot who had not actually achieved nirvana. So you could say that this could be seen in that way also, right? Actually physically saw. Does that make sense, Sneh?
Yeah, I'm just, I guess, I thought, that the statement that emptiness needed to be realized was kind of had to be based on reasoning, but it's almost like we are taking it on faith that other masters say so.
Well, so there's two main vehicles, two main methods to understand this: scripture and reasoning. So the Buddha himself said in many, many scriptures, in many, many sutras, that to achieve liberation, you had to realize emptiness. These are only in the Mahayana scriptures, of course, right? So if you take, there's a lot of things that we take right now until we have direct realization of them that we take on faith, the existence of karma and so forth, right? Probably most of us here, I can't speak for you, I mean, me, I don't have realization that directly realizes the efficacy of karma. So it's something that we take on faith based on, other practice of the Buddhist path. So when the Buddha made proclamations in scripture, so we say scriptural citations, that's one reason to accept that realizing just the gross selflessness of persons is not enough. You have to realize emptiness. Then within accepting those scriptural citations, if you analyze them, scripture and reasoning, if you use reason within those scriptural citations, also you can ascertain that you have to realize emptiness, as we will see with other arguments that are coming up. For instance, the Hinayana definition of the afflictions are based, all of the afflictions are said to result from grasping to a self-supporting, substantially existent person. In the Hinayana, all of the afflictions are said to be that, what we say, the subtle increasers, the tage. Lama Tsongkhapa points out, Nagarjuna pointed out, Chandrakirti pointed out, that there are subtler kinds of ignorance existing that are grasping to the inherent existence of the persons and phenomena, not just to a self-supporting, substantially existent person, that subtler kind of ignorance is what in the Hinayana could be likened to non-afflicted ignorance. Maybe if you remember from our earlier talks in tenets class in the Vaibhashika, it's said that there are two kinds of ignorance: afflicted ignorance and non-afflicted ignorance. That afflicted ignorance was the one that was based on grasping to a self-supporting, substantially existent person. Non-afflicted ignorance is the Vaibhashika said even the Arhats still had the non-afflicted ignorance. Who eliminated that non-afflicted ignorance? Only the Buddha. Because the Buddha then, because of being free of that kind of ignorance, was able to see distant objects that even Arhats couldn't see past times, know all phenomena, and so forth. So Shantideva will argue, as we'll see again, using reasoning, that although the Hinayana Arhats, according to their system, if the so-called Arhats, with what we call quotation marks around it, so-called Arhats who have simply realized the lack of the self-supporting, substantially existent person, they still have a subtler kind of ignorance in their mind stream, which is the generator of subtler kinds of attachment, anger, ignorance, and so forth. And that therefore they haven't eliminated all of the afflictions. So they're both things, scripture and reasoning, that are used to understand this. And although most people who have studied a little bit about emptiness and maybe have faith in Mahayana accept it just on the level of faith, what we're doing now is to try to go into more detail into why these statements of the Buddha can be verified and so forth. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Shanka, did you have a question?
Yes, maybe I didn't understand this fully, but did you imply in your statements earlier that you had to have arhatship, whether Hinayana or Mahayana, arhatship to have some level of clairvoyance?
No, you can have clairvoyance even as a non-Buddhist.
Right. That's okay. That's what I was checking. Yes, that's what I had thought as well. So that's why I was just checking. Okay.
Right. Yeah, there can be
On the mundane path, you can certainly have clairvoyance. Yes.
Yes. Okay. So how are we doing? Okay. So, like the meditative attainment of non-perception, the mind divorced from emptiness, though ceased, will rise again. Jeffrey translated as, though an afflicted mind, though an afflicted mind lacking meditation on emptiness is halted, it is again produced as in the case of the absorption of non-discrimination. So I think that's, to me, that's a little bit more clear. So that means if you have, say, in the Hinayana path here, if you're just meditating on the 16 attributes of the Four Noble Truths, that is a mind lacking meditation on emptiness, right? Even if you were to halt that through the meditation of cessation, that mind stream will again be produced as in the case of the absorption of non-discrimination. So what does that mean? The absorption of non-discrimination, even though usually it's something that has to be achieved on the Arya path, in the Hinayana and the Mahayana. Once you're an Arya and you reach the peak of cyclic existence, you can cause the mind to temporarily cease its manifest progression. It's as though there's no mind, there's no discrimination. That's called the absorption of non-perception. What is it, Paul? Nirodha Samutpatti?
Nirodha Samapati, yes, exactly.
So that particular kind of concentration is something that's accepted to exist, that meditators actually achieved. But then when the karma for that absorption finished, the mind stream appears again. And in the same way, even if you have not meditated on emptiness, you're just causing the delusions, the afflictions to subdue due to their manifest version not being there. Still, those afflictions will arise again in the same way that the consciousness arises again after the absorption of non-perception. Making sense? Let me see some faces here. I'm looking at Carol just to see I think she's trying to keep a straight face so that I don't ask her. What do you think? Does it make any sense at all?
Yes.
Oh, good short answer. So what? Yes, what?
it is clear to me that in order to have the view, there is the karma that's linking it together. However, we rely on not only the faith to believe that that's the truth, as well as the arhats that have realized emptiness through the path. That's so far where my head is at with what you've said in the past 5 minutes. And I'm thankful for Snehi's question. That was really insightful, and what you went through to explain to her, and the person that followed was also useful. So thank you.
Okay. What was I going to ask? Richard, are you following? Making sense?
Yes, it is. Thanks.
Okay. So this thing about the absorption of non-perception, the idea is that even though the mind has apparently ceased, when the karma of that absorption, when the karma to be able to remain in that absorption finishes, one no longer is in that meditative state where there's no apparent mind or perception or discrimination. Those mental factors, that mind stream again appears. So it's not as though it had totally ceased so that it would never come back.
Is that comparable to like deep sleep?
No. Deep sleep, first of all, deep sleep is sleep is a mental factor. If you had a chance to study mind and mental factors, sleep is a mental factor in which the gross states of mind have absorbed. I think Tantra would explain it as absorbed toward the heart chakra. So the meditative state of what was it called? The absorption of non-perception is different than deep sleep. It's actually you haven't absorbed the winds to the central channel like in sleep, but that the when we talk about the formless realm, you say there are four levels of the formless realm. No consciousness and so forth, up until the peak of cyclic existence, when the mind is becoming very, very subtle, not having any objects. And with certain procedures at that point, you can cause the mind to become even more subtle. It's still there. It's not like this state of deep sleep where the winds have absorbed to the central channel, but the mind has become so subtle that it's almost not apparent. When I say almost not apparent, because someone with clairvoyance would realize there's still a subtle state of mind there. In the state of sleep, it's a different mechanism that one is entering into. It's not the same as the absorption of non-perception or non-discrimination. Okay, let me continue a little bit further. So in explaining about that stanza from Shantideva, right? Lama Tsongkhapa says, if one is divorced from the realization of emptiness, one hasn't realized emptiness. The mind ridden with afflictions may have ceased for a while. Jeffrey translates that when Jimpa says ridden with afflictions. Jeffrey says the afflicted minds are temporarily halted. Okay, if one has not realized emptiness, just is relying on a meditation on the 16 aspects of the Four Noble Truths, the lack of a self-supporting, substantially existent person, the mind ridden with afflictions may have ceased, or the what did I just say here? The afflicted minds are temporarily halted, right? Even with a mundane path, meditating on the, developing the first concentration, second concentration, and so forth, the afflicted minds of the states below you are temporarily halted. With a meditation on the lack of a self-supporting, substantially existent person, you can cause the afflicted minds of all of those states, the manifest afflictions, to be subdued, halted. Okay, they may have ceased for a while through practicing other paths, but as they have not permanently turned away, the afflictions will surface in a manifest manner. They have not been permanently turned away. They have not been permanently abandoned. They've only been temporarily halted, right? Because the imprints of them, say the seeds, not the imprints, the seeds of them are still present, the seeds of the delusions. Remember, when we talk about delusions, there are various causes of the delusions to arise. One of them is to have the seed of the delusion. Now, right now, Ron, are you angry right now?
No, but I have the seeds.
Yeah, that's good. Right. So even though Ron, very pleasant, probably most of this life doesn't get angry that often, if at all. So the manifest affliction of anger is not there, but still has the seed of anger, that if the right situation were to arise, seeing something unjust or being cheated or something like that, or something that he was very passionate about, anger could rise again. So there's a difference between the seeds and the manifest, the actual delusions, right? So here, if one has not realized emptiness, if one is divorced from the realization of emptiness, the mind ridden with afflictions may have ceased for a while. The afflicted minds may have been temporarily halted through practicing other paths. That means the paths of the 16 aspects of the Four Noble Truths and so forth, or the mundane vipassana that brings you up to the, the peak of cyclic existence. But as they have not been permanently turned away, as the afflictions have not been abandoned so that they'll never return again, they will resurface in a manifest manner afterwards. As such, the circling and cyclic existence under the power of karma would persist. Under the power of the contaminated actions, the rebirth in cyclic existence under the power of contaminated actions has not been eliminated. The statement that there is a temporary stoppage of the afflicted mind is to be understood as explained above, as temporary elimination of manifest afflictions. So when you read the texts on one of the texts that we would read in the Gelugpa monastery is called samsuk. Samsuk means the sam is short for samten, suk is sukme. It means the form and formless absorptions. So it's talking about everything above the desire realm, the first concentration, second, third, fourth, the first formless absorption, second, third, fourth, which is called the peak of cyclic existence. In those texts, it talks about it uses the terminology abandoned, pangpa. It's that the delusions are abandoned, but it means abandoned temporarily. The statement that there is a temporary stoppage or abandonment of the afflicted minds is to be understood as above, as a temporary elimination of the manifest afflictions. It doesn't mean abandoned in the sense of having realized emptiness when the delusions and their seeds are abandoned. The seeds are still there. Okay, that's where we are. How are we doing? KT, how are you doing? You understanding?
Yes, good. Thank you. Is,
Yeah.
would we say then that at this point, they have not entered the path of seeing? Is that correct?
From the Prasangika point of view, they have definitely not entered into the path of seeing if they've only realized the gross selflessness of persons. According to Hinayana, they have, and they are Arya beings. But for the Prasangika, they haven't caused any of the delusions to be abandoned so that they'll never return again. The seeds of them are still there.
Okay,
Okay. Sean.
Thanks.
Yeah.
thanks.
So is it easy for people to mistake a realization of emptiness for one of these attainments of non-perceptions or some of these higher formless? Because what I think what you're saying is like at these higher formless states, like there's no perception, but there's still the awareness, but you haven't eliminated the seed. So as soon as you come out of that, you're going to create more afflictions. Whereas,
Well,
you
you don't even
someone-
have any awareness. You don't even have any awareness. It's a state in which the gross mind seems to have disappeared. So it's only when you arise from that, you might mistake that for emptiness. There are even grosser things that one could mistake for emptiness. You know, there was one practitioner with us. It joined the Sangha at Kopan, and they were going to do a 3-year retreat. Seemed to be a pretty smart person. They were going to do a 3-year retreat just outside of McLeodganj in Dharamsala. And after 1 week, they came out of the retreat and they said they'd realized enlightenment. They'd realized emptiness. And, you know, let alone Lama Sopa Rinpoche, the rest of us were kind of, you know, and it's as though sometimes with, you know, a lot of ardor, a lot of faith and so forth, one can mistake a state of mind in which, you know, there's just blankness. There's just, you know, it's almost like one of the, almost, probably not even one of the formless absorptions, but something like that, just having no thoughts to your mind. Like when we do our motivation meditation at the beginning, meditating on the clear light nature of the mind, if one were to persist in that for some time, having no content, no thoughts to the mind, one might think, I've achieved nirvana. You know, that I've realized emptiness, but that's not the case.
So you're saying, and if someone actually realizes emptiness, then the afflictions and their seeds are gone.
No.
Is that correct?
No. If you've realized emptiness, you've abandoned some of them. If you have, well, let's say, if you have a direct realization of emptiness, you could have realized emptiness on the path of accumulation or the path of preparation by means of a mental image, not a direct realization. That's still called a realization of emptiness. None of the delusions have been abandoned, so they'll never come back, right? But you do have a temporary subduing of, even with that, you have a temporary lack of the manifest afflictions. But those people on those paths, they know where they are. You know, it's like a sequence. It's not like you just sat down for this one practitioner who was going to do a 3-year retreat, and after 1 week they left, right? It's as though just some short, before that they had delusions, and as though after that they had no delusions. They had no signposts along the line, right? Practitioners who are actually on the path of accumulation and preparation, they know where they are. You know, they've been a lot of practice before that. They've seen a sequential improvement of their mind, their understanding of emptiness. They know they haven't realized emptiness directly yet. But for them, even for them, there is a temporary, I I'm searching for other words, submerging, the manifest afflictions are not present, but they have not abandoned them at all. On the path of seeing, you've abandoned some of the afflictions, not all of them. You have to continue on the path of meditation. On the bodhisattva path, it might be another countless great eon meditating on emptiness to eliminate all of the other afflictions. Hinayana path is different. They might achieve that realization in a couple of lifetimes. The bodhisattva their main goal is not just to eliminate the afflictions, but to eliminate the obstructions to omniscience, right? So they take a longer time to actualize that. Mary Ellen, you have a question.
Yeah. What causes the absorption of non-perception to end?
Karma. That is to say, what causes a life to end? You could say, oh, they grew old or something like that. But the main cause is that the karma you have to live is exhausted. So say for instance, you meditate, you enter into a meditation on emptiness. The higher bodhisattvas on the pure bhumis, or this even before the pure bhumis, the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th bhumis, you enter into meditation on emptiness. That could last for years, or maybe even an eon, if you had the right, determination beforehand. But eventually that would also end. But the Buddhas awaken or sort of nudge those bodhisattvas. Sometimes if they're in meditation on emptiness too long, they awaken them from that to remind them that they have not eliminated all of the obstructions from the mind, that they shouldn't be enamored with this seeing state of bliss. So it's the same in the same way. Their meditation, those higher, let's say on the pure bhumis, the 8th, 9th, and 10th bhumis, their meditation, if they entered in with full enthusiasm into meditating on emptiness, it could last an eon maybe. So the Buddhas have to remind them, they'll awaken them from that, because the karma to remain in that absorption could last that long. Eventually they would get out of that absorption when the karma to sustain it had finished, had been used up, right? Like using up your grocery money or something like that. But the Buddhas will even awaken them before that to remind them that that's not the best use of their time, that they have to accumulate merit in addition to accumulating wisdom. Remember the two collections, accumulation of merit and wisdom, to achieve the state of Buddhahood. How are we doing?
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. So if one is divorced from the realization of emptiness, the mind ridden with afflictions may have ceased for a while through practicing other paths, but they have not been permanently turned away. They have not been permanently abandoned. The afflictions will resurface eventually in a manifest manner. As such, the circling and cyclic existence under the power of karma would persist. They would not have reached nirvana. They would not be in a state of peace so that they would not take rebirth again. The statement that there is a temporary stoppage of the afflicted mind is to be understood as explained above, a temporary elimination of the manifest afflictions. Now, to present the opponent's response to the line that, earlier when Shantideva says, one sees in them the potency of karma, remember, which was misinterpreted by some as perhaps the suffering of Maudgalyana and Angulimala in the end of their lives. So to present the opponent's response to that, the response is, if one asserts it is certain that they've no craving that leads to appropriation. Jeffrey translates that as temporarily the absence of attachment to rebirth is definite. So that is, this is the statement of the other of the non-prasangika. It is certain that they are no craving that leads to appropriation. What does that mean? Doris, do you know what that means?
Well, appropriation is appropriation of the aggregates. So it's
Right.
implying rebirth.
Right. So it's saying they have no craving. When you talk about the 12 links of dependent origination, craving, grasping, becoming, right? And then rebirth. So starts with having craving, which is, we talked quite a bit earlier about this in our tenets class. Usually in the Hinayana tradition, they translate this term as thirst or just attachment. So it's what it is a subtle kind of attachment that's still present in the mind that can lead to an intensification when there's grasping, and that can cause the karmic seeds on one's mind stream to actualize so that they're ready to become the next rebirth, craving, grasping, and becoming. Diana, you were in some of those classes, even at Land of Medicine Buddha. Do you remember a bit about this?
I have some memory of it, but it's not very strong.
Right. So hopefully we'll revive some of those. So they're saying that the craving that causes the appropriation, that is of the 12 links, craving, grasping, becoming. You know what I'm talking about, right? Suvansh, do you remember those links and the 12 links?
Yes, I don't know all of them, but I've read that material.
Okay. Self-grasping. Okay. Donnie is saying to everyone self-grasping. Well, it's not, it's a result of self-grasping, but this is just the manifest affliction that causes the karma at the time of death to be a karmic seed. So there are many karmic seeds in our mind stream right now. I have the karmic seed to be born as a dinosaur, an elephant, a hell being, a preta. What seed is actualized at the time of death depends upon many things. One of them is this mental factor craving or thirst, you could call it. It's a particular kind of attachment that causes the karmic seed to ripen a little bit. Then when that intensifies, it's called grasping. And as a result of that, the third factor, becoming, is no longer a delusion. These two, craving and grasping, are both afflictions, delusions, kind of attachment. Becoming is the state of the karmic seed that's been sort of nurtured by this, like sort of watered and sunshine put on it due to craving and grasping, and it's now ready to give rise to a sprout. So the Hinayana is saying here, if it is certain that they've no craving that leads to appropriation. That's their assertion. So since by that path, the craving that appropriates future births is brought to an end, it is certain that they do not take future births under the power of karma. This is all in quotes. So this is the assertion of the Hinayana, right? They've gotten rid of all of the craving that can bring about rebirth. In response, Shantideva says in that same stanza, though this craving may be unafflicted, might it yet exist like ignorance? Okay, so interesting. So remember a little while ago, I talked about afflicted ignorance and non-afflicted ignorance. According to the Vaibhashikas, the difference between an arhat and a Buddha is that the arhats had eliminated afflicted ignorance by meditating on the lack of a self-supporting, substantially existent person. but they had not eliminated something more subtle kind of ignorance that prevented them from seeing other things they called unafflicted ignorance. So that's what Shantideva is saying here. You're saying that, you know, the afflictions, what do they say here? This craving, which is that you're proposing as having been eliminated through meditating on a lack of a self-supporting, substantially existent person, that's enough. But could there not be something more subtle in the same way that you propose that there is a non-afflicted ignorance? Could you not say that there is a non-afflicted craving? One that is still from Prajnanika, it's still afflicted, but from your point of view, it's not afflicted according to your definition of afflictions. So Lama Tsongkhapa says, Shantideva's response here is this. Just as the opponent accepts there are two types of ignorance, one that is an affliction, and in the sense defined in the Abhidharma, those afflictions all arise from grasping to a self-supporting, substantially existent person. That's what they call afflictions, right? That derive from grasping to a self-supporting, substantial existence person. Prajnanika says there are subtler kinds of grasping to inherent existence that also cause a subtler kind of afflictions. There are two types of ignorance. One that is an affliction in the sense of in the Abhidharma and defined in the Abhidharma. Another type that is not, cannot he, that's the non-afflicted ignorance that the Buddha has eliminated, right? They accept that. Why can he not also accept, with respect to craving, one type that is an affliction in the sense defined in the Abhidharma, arisen from grasping a self-supporting, substantially existent person, and another type that is not, something which is more subtle, which Prajnanika would say that kind of craving that's arisen from grasping to an inherently existent person or inherent existence in general. The suggestion here is that there is a form of craving that is not affliction, is not an affliction in the sense commonly assented to both by the two Shravaka schools and by the Mahayana. So what does it say? Both. The suggestion here is that there is a form of craving that is not an affliction in the sense commonly assented to by the two Shravaka schools and by the Mahayana. So we say that the Mahayana would say that the craving arisen from grasping to a self-supporting, substantially existent person is an affliction. So we're in common with them. The Hinayana schools, the Shravaka schools, the two Shravaka schools means the Vaibhashika and Sautrantika, say that those are the only afflictions. This does not mean, however, that such a craving is not accepted to be an affliction in Shantideva's own tradition. Therefore, so this subtler kind of non-afflicted craving that we're talking about here, when we're talking to the Hinayana, is actually accepted to be an affliction in the Prasangika and in Shantideva's own tradition. Therefore, the meaning is this: such beings may have temporarily eliminated the manifest craving brought about by grasping to a self of persons as a self-sufficient substantial reality, but they may still possess a craving brought about by the identity view. Do you remember what's our usual translation of that? Remember what Jimpa translates identity view as?
View of the transaction?
Yeah. Who said that? I'm going to give credit. Richard. Yeah, right. So what we have been calling the view of the transitory collection I am trying to recall what the Sanskrit is. Was it kaya sat dristi, kaya sat dristi, or sat kaya dristi? I can't remember which way it goes. That's usually how we translate the view of the transitory collection. That means the view of yourself, the relative self, conventional self, the conventional David. So David's concentrating there. David Maklis has a conventional self, which is merely imputed to his aggregates, right? Those aggregates are a transitory collection. So we say that view that grasps the conventional self as being inherently existent, that's what's called the view of the transitory collection, or Jimpa translates that Tibetan and Sanskrit as identity view. Jiksok latawa. Jik in Tibetan, jiksok latawa. Jik means transitory, subject to disintegration. Sok means collection. Tawa means view of the transitory collection. So they may still possess a craving brought about by the view of the transitory collection that grasps the person as existing by way of its own nature, by its own, intrinsic nature, inherently existent. Thus, for those who have eliminated the manifest levels in the manner described above, when it comes to this latter identity view, this latter view of the transitory collection, and the craving that arises because of it, even their manifest levels persist. So if you've realized the lack of a self-supporting, substantially existent person, you've caused the manifest delusions that arise because of that kind of craving to be subdued, to be not manifest, but you still have manifest delusions that arise from grasping to an inherently existent person, something more subtle, kind of like what in the Abhidharma they call about the non-afflicted ignorance. Okay, making sense? Stephen's nodding. Okay. Okay. Ida, how are you doing? You making sense? Good. Okay. Rachel, is that just a photo of you, or are you actually? Oh, yeah, you're actually sitting. Okay. Is it making sense? You have any question, Rachel?
No. I think I'm understanding that if you've meditated on the substantial
Lack of self-supporting substantial
lack of
person.
self, yes, SSP, whatever. Once you've meditated on that level, you eliminate the afflictions, the afflicted ignorance.
Wait. You haven't eliminated it completely.
Temporarily,
yeah.
Temporarily,
right.
in both the Hinayana and the Mahayana.
Right.
And so that's common, but in the Mahayana, the Prasangika, Madhyamaka view, then there is this other level, the view of the transitory collection, the identity view, which, if that is grasped at, that produces the whole collection of the non-afflicted ignorances, which are only eliminated by a Buddha and not by a Arhat. Did I miss something?
Yeah, according to Hinayana, only a Buddha has eliminated the non-afflicted ignorance. In reality, Prasangika would say, no, that's baloney. A real Arhat has eliminated all of the, not only the grasping not only the craving and ignorance and so forth that has arisen from grasping to a self-supporting, substantially existent person, but they've also eliminated, a real arhat has also eliminated all of those delusions that have arisen from grasping to inherent existence. It's only from the Hinayana point of view, this terminology in the Abhidharma of afflicted and non-afflicted ignorance. From Prasangika point of view, what Hinayana Abhidharma texts say is non-afflicted ignorance is actually an affliction. It's actually, Prasangika says, grasping to inherent existence is an affliction. Okay, Jennifer, what do you think?
Hello, just a question about the view of the transitory collections. Is that related to just the Mahayana schools, like the Svatantrika school, or would the lower schools also say that one needs to abandon the view of the transitory collections?
Right. All of them use that terminology, but what they mean by that is different. For the Vaibhashika and Sautrantika, the view of the transitory collection is one that views the aggregates and conceives them to be a self-supporting, substantially existent person. They use the same Satkaya Drisi or Jiksoklas Tawa, they use the same terminology, but so their referent object of the view of the transitory collection is the aggregates, a transitory collection, and they view it as a self-supporting, substantially existent person. That's what you want to eliminate, that is not the transitory collection is not a self-supporting, substantially existent person. Prasangika says that's not right. What you're actually viewing is not the aggregates, you're viewing the conventional person. And you conceive that, you grasp at that as being inherently existent. That's actually what's meant by the view of the transitory collection. You know, from the Hinayana point of view, transitory collection rolls off the tongue easily because what you're viewing is a transitory collection of the aggregates, and you're viewing it to be self-supporting, substantially existent. The Prasangika is saying that the transitory collection is the basis upon which you impute the conventional person. Okay, Jennifer is imputed upon her transitory collection. That's how the name gets in there, transitory collection. But you're not viewing the aggregates themselves. You're viewing the conventional person that does exist relatively and incorrectly grasping at it as being inherently existent. Something much more subtle. Okay, so they use the same terminology, but they mean something different by that. Okay, making sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So,
Venerable.
yes.
Sorry, I have a question.
No problem.
So I'm still going. Okay, so I'm unclear about the afflicted ignorance, and unafflicted ignorance, right? So
yeah, non-afflicted.
So yeah, right. So
Prasangika wouldn't use that terminology. Prasangika wouldn't use that.
Right. This is according to the Hinayana schools, right? I'm just trying to understand, according to the Hinayana schools, what's the difference between what are the afflicted ignorances and what are the non-afflicted or whatever ignorances?
Okay. So they say that it's possible by meditating on the lack of a self-supporting, substantially existent person to eliminate all the afflictions. So their definition of affliction means the anger, attachment, jealousy, so forth and so on, that arise from grasping to a self-supporting, substantially existent person. Prasangika would say, yes, those are afflictions. There are afflictions that arise from that gross grasping, but there are also other kinds of affliction. In fact, even those afflictions themselves ultimately depend upon grasping to an inherently existent person.
I see. Okay, so basically, it's really the Prasangikas who are categorizing what the Hinayanas are saying according to categorizing them. So the first one is the afflictions due to grasping the aggregates and as the self-sufficient substantial existent person, and then the other one is seeing the conventional person and grasping the grasping the inherent existence of that person. Yes. Okay.
Right.
Got it. Okay. Now I understand.
Okay. Good. Okay. Okay. So, thus, for those who have eliminated the manifest levels in the manner described above, by meditating on the, either mundane vipassana or the lack of a self-supporting substantial existent person, when it comes to this latter identity view, this view of the transitory collection and the craving that results from it, even their manifest levels persist. So someone who has caused the manifest afflictions to be submerged, to be subdued, or whatever, try to press down, so they're not manifest, they still have the manifest levels of the delusions that arise from the grasping to inherent existence. Okay? Nadine, is it making sense to you?
Yes, thank you so much.
You can't thank me for your understanding. Then it's your understanding. Okay, now, insofar as when the manifest afflictions are eliminated, maybe it should be a comma there, the roots of those afflictions persist. Insofar as when the manifest afflictions are eliminated, the roots of those afflictions persist. It is the same for both of these two traditions, the Abhidharma tradition and, let's say, the Prasangika. Here he says Chandrakirti's. If no difference were found between the two systems as to the presence or absence of the manifest levels, it would be pointless to distinguish between different types of craving. Now, insofar as when the manifest afflictions are eliminated, the roots of these afflictions persist, right? This is talking about elimination in the sense of just subduing them, causing them to decrease. Insofar as when the manifest afflictions are eliminated in the sense of being subdued, not abandoned completely, the roots of these afflictions persist. It is the same for both of these two traditions. If no difference were found between the two systems as to the presence or absence of the manifest levels, it would be pointless to distinguish different types of craving. Next, the text reads, again, this is quoting Shantideva, craving is conditioned by feeling, and feeling is present in them too. This is verse 48 in the Bodhisattva Charyavatara. Hopkins translates it as, attachment occurs through the cause of feeling, and they have feeling. Who is saying that? Is that the opponent of Shantideva who's proposing the Abhidharma system, or is that Shantideva?
That's Shantideva.
Sounds like Shantideva, right? These lines explain why craving will not come to an end for one who has eliminated the manifest afflictions on the basis of other paths. If one has, again, eliminated in the sense of causing them the manifest afflictions to just be subdued, right? So they don't appear on the basis of other paths, meaning the mundane path or the path of the 16 attributes of the Four Noble Truths, as explained by the Hinayana. Without the view realizing suchness, without realizing emptiness, he or she will not eliminate the ignorance grasping to the true existence of feelings, not even to a small degree. Okay, so according to the Hinayana, do feelings inherently exist? Sumansh?
So, Venerable George, my understanding is that according to the Hinayana, the lower schools, the self does not exist, but the skandhas by themselves, okay, they do exist.
Right. So I think they even use the word inherently. They say, in fact, when we talk about the Sarvastivadins, it says all phenomena other than the persons really exist, truly exist. From Prasangika, true existence is the same as inherent existence. So according to the Hinayana, the feelings do exist, right? So these lines explain why craving will not come to an end for one who has eliminated manifest afflictions on the basis of other paths. Without viewing suchness, he will not eliminate the ignorance grasping at the true existence of feelings. According to the Hinayana, it's not possible that the feelings do truly exist. So there's no way that by meditating on the lack of a self-supporting, substantially existent person, you have eliminated grasping to the feelings as truly existent. They accept that they're truly existent. In that case, when a pleasurable feeling has arisen in them, him or her, the practitioner, why would craving in the form of longing not to be separated from it not arise in them? So feeling arises, pleasurable feeling, or unpleasant feeling that gives rise to anger and hatred and so forth. So let's take pleasurable feeling. That's what he's using here. If a pleasurable feeling has arisen in them, why, and they view that feeling as truly existent, why would craving in the form of longing not to be separated from it not arise in him? David, you're smiling. Do you follow? Make sense? If you believe the feelings are truly existent, yeah, you want to keep them. You don't want to lose them, right? When we talk about longing, there's different kinds of, or craving, there are different kinds. Craving to have, craving not to lose, and so forth. So this is, in that case, when a pleasurable feeling has arisen in them, why would craving in the form of longing not to be separated from it not arise? I don't want to lose this, man. This is great, And when an unpleasant feeling has arisen, why would craving that longs to be separated from it not arise? There's also kind of craving, not craving to be separated, to be free of this. For it is certain that effects will ensue from a cause when all the favorable conditions have gathered and there are no obstacles. So there will be a craving that arises from this. This is what Shantideva is saying in that verse. He says, craving is conditioned by feeling, and feeling is present in them too. Well, what about for the Prasangika? Isn't feeling present? Stephen, what do you think?
Yeah, feeling would be present, Venerable George. Of course,
why wouldn't they develop craving to not be separated from that? Let's say
because because they wouldn't think it was inherently that way.
But I guess if they'd been meditating on emptiness, not just the lack of a self-supporting, substantially existent person, they would have broadened their application of selflessness, not just to the person, but to other phenomena, meaning the feelings. So they would realize the feelings are not inherently existent. So there'd be a different situation than the Hinayana practitioner who sees the feeling as inherently existent. So for example, remember, we mentioned many times this seminal line in the Heart Sutra when Shariputra is asking Maitreya, right? Oh, no, who's asking? Avalokiteshvara. How do the bodhisattvas meditate on the perfection of wisdom? And Avalokiteshvara says, the bodhisattvas meditate on the emptiness of the aggregates also. Remember that the word also. They don't meditate just on emptiness in the sense of a lack of a self-supporting, substantially existent person, but they apply that to the other aggregates. One of the aggregates is the feeling aggregate, right? They realize that the feeling is also not inherently existent, is empty of inherent existence, is not truly existent. So for them, say for instance, if you and I were to go to a magic show and the magician were to propose some, through some spell or through some magic, make an appearance of an attractive woman, and me being more ignorant, I go, wow, look at that, craving. Yeah, I don't want to leave. You say, let's go, George, come on, there's other things. And I said, no, man, I don't want to leave this. And you would say, that's just an illusion. That's empty. That's kind of the difference here. The Hinayana practitioner sees that feeling as inherently existent, and they don't want to leave that. So there would be that subtle kind of craving there. Make sense?
So, yeah. Thank you very much, Venerable George. I was thinking it sort of along a similar line, though. And we say that feeling is caused from the fruition of karma.
Right.
Negative karma will come to fruition as unpleasant feeling.
Right.
We also say that karma is definite, it's fixed. So if we created negative karma, then we are certainly going to have some kind of fruition of unpleasant feelings in the future.
That's not what fixed means. That karma is definite, or as you're
definite.
Means that virtuous karma gives rise to pleasant feelings. Negative karma gives rise to pleasant feeling. What is that? Did I get it right? Negative karma gives rise to suffering. Virtuous karma gives rise to pleasure. But it doesn't mean fixed in the sense that it can't be eliminated. You can purify karma before it ripens, right? It's not fixed in that sense. It's definite that virtuous karma, if not eliminated through applying opponent forces or other things, that it will bring about pleasurable feeling. So what ensues from that? What are you thinking? You're thinking something.
Yeah. So, well, I guess I was thinking a couple of things. So first of all, so karma can be inactivated, I guess.
Yeah, can be purified. It can be, its efficacy can be suppressed a little bit or reduced through applying some of the opponent forces. If you apply all of the opponent forces again and again, the karma can be eliminated so that it becomes impotent, so that there's no chance of it giving any result in the future.
There's that part of the chain, but then there's also when a feeling, like a negative feeling, comes into fruition in a mind stream, also the extent of suffering that's generated from that negative feeling can be mitigated based on, training the mind.
Right.
So can we say that as well?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So say, for instance, generally, if you talk about physical suffering, like when we talked about Moggallana being beaten up by these, I think they were Jains or something like that, naked ascetics. Also, Angulimala having killed so many people, even when he became Arhat, people didn't want to see him around. If he came around, they would beat him and curse at him and everything like that. So they experienced physical sufferings, but their minds didn't experience suffering. Now, in the case of what you're talking about, mental suffering, like depression, that arises in us. We're not arhats yet, at least I'm not. So that kind of mental suffering can arise. And for an ordinary person, if we're beaten or abused or something like that, we can get, we can feel unhappy also, right? But for an arhat, they wouldn't have that same kind of mental discomfort. They wouldn't have mental suffering. Okay. Was there someone else had their hand up? Maybe I misunderstood. Okay. Yeah, go on. Who?
I did have my hand up, Venerable George, but I feel like I need to reread this and ask my question more clearly next week.
Okay, that's fair enough. Okay. Shankar, what were you going to say?
Oh, well, I was just going to say that we were talking about this last time too, I think, and I was able to unearth one of those videos of Lama Zopa Rinpoche with his stroke and in pain, and while he's still laughing and doing prayers. It was pretty cute again, to see it again.
Yeah. With someone who has a realization of emptiness, even if they're not yet an arhat and not on the, say, the 8th, 9th, or 10th bhumis or whatever, they still get their mental suffering as a result of any kind of physical discomfort is much lower. Okay, let's go a little bit further. So without the view realizing suchness, they will not eliminate the ignorance grasping at true existence of feelings, not even to a small degree. In that case, when a pleasurable feeling has arisen in them, why would craving in the form of longing not to be separated from it not arise? They would have that craving. And when an unpleasant feeling has arisen, why would craving that longs to be separated from it not arise in front of them? I want to get rid of this, I got a headache, For it is certain that effects will ensue from a cause when all the favorable conditions have gathered and there are no obstacles. It's certain, that's what when Stephen was saying fixed. It is certain that effects will ensue from a cause when all the favorable conditions have gathered and there are no obstacles. So fixed doesn't mean that definitely comes. It means that there are no obstacles. Like say, you plant barley seed in the field and then the crows come and they eat the barley seed. There's no barley plant that's going to grow from that, right? That's it. That's an obstacle. The way we explain how craving in relation to feeling is brought to an end is presented in the guide to the Bodhisattva way. So Hopkins translates that line, according to our own system of Chandrakirti and so forth, Prasangika, the way to overcome attachment to feeling is, as Shantideva says, craving is conditioned by feeling and feeling is present in them too. Okay. These lines explain why craving will not come to an end for one who has eliminated manifest afflictions on the basis of other paths. Here, when it talks about other paths, that means the mundane vipassana, where it causes all of the manifest afflictions other than the peak of cyclic existence to be eliminated in the sense of not being manifest, and in the meditation on the 16 attributes of the Four Noble Truths, which causes even all of those to be unmanifest, also the delusions of the peak of cyclic existence to be unmanifest. These lines explain why craving will not come to an end for one who has eliminated manifest afflictions on the basis of other paths. Without the view realizing suchness, read emptiness, he will not eliminate the ignorance grasping at the true existence of feelings, not even to a small degree. Oh, wait, I've already read that. Okay, I misread. The way we explain how craving in relation to feeling is brought to an end is presented in the Bodhisattva Charyavatara. When there is no one who feels, right? So you've realized there's no inherently existent feeler, me, I, nor any feelings either. There's no inherently existent feeling. When you have some kind of feeling, you could do that kind of meditation also. Who is the person that thinks I'm feeling this? There is no person. There is just feeling. If there is no one who feels, that means meditation on the non-inherent existence of the person. And there's no feeling, that means meditating on the non-inherent existence of the feelings themselves. At that point, given this situation, why would craving not come to an end? Right? Jeffrey translates, when it is seen that there is no feeler nor feeling, why would attachment not be overcome through seeing this situation? So it's not only meditating, in the Hinayana sense of the selflessness of the person, but also on the selflessness of the phenomena, feeling in this case. These lines explain how when one habitually sees that nothing, neither the one who feels nor the feelings themselves has intrinsic existence, craving will come to an end. So from the Prasangika point of view, there's reasoning, there's logic again. What was it, Snehi or someone was asking before, or one of you were asking, did it depend upon, just faith or, the statements or so forth? You can see here the reasoning that's brought about here, that the reasoning that if feeling is still grasped at as being inherently existent, that can give rise to a subtle kind of craving. These lines also indicate that if one lacks such a path that realizes emptiness, there is no reason why all craving would come to an end. You would still have craving if you didn't realize emptiness, the emptiness of inherent existence. The same meaning is conveyed in the 60 stanzas of reasoning. Paul recently reminded me that you had some, what did you checked the Tibetan in Liozzo's translation?
Yeah, I worked on the critical edition for that with Chandrakirti's commentary and checked it with Bob.
Yeah, so they called it, interestingly, Reason 60, which Paul, I thought, I don't hope you don't mind me saying, you thought was kind of hilarious. I kind of think also it's 60 stanzas of reasoning, not reason 60 sounds like a kind of strange translation of it. So there it's so there the stanza says, in those whose minds possess a locus, why would the grave poison of afflictions not arise? That's Jimpa's translation. Jeffrey translates, how could the great poison of the afflictions not arise for one whose mind has a base? So the Tibetan here says, Nedan chepe, semdan senden la, nyonmong duchen chimijo. Why would the great poison of the delusions not arise in one whose mind is together with Nedan chepa, which Jimpa translates as locus, Jeffrey translates as base. So that means if you still think there's a basis, for your craving, the actual feeling, why would the afflictions not arise? The earlier statement about there being craving because of the presence of feeling was criticized by two Tibetans, Khapa and Sek Wangchuk Senge. I want to get this note here. There we go. Chaba means Rikbe Wangchuk Chaba Chugi Senge. And the other is Sek Wangchuk Senge. These were two, I think, Sakyas. They asserted that this is not a sound reasoning, Shantideva's reasoning, for it involves inferring an effect on the basis of the presence of a cause. Can you infer an effect on the basis of the cause being present? Okay.
Conditions would be needed also.
Yeah. Right. You have to have the conditions, right?
And no hindrances.
No hindrances. Yeah. Right. Who is saying that? Michael. Oh, yeah. Right. So, for instance, you can infer the presence of smoke from the existence of fire, right?
Yeah.
If there's fire, where there's fire, there's smoke. No.
That's
What do we usually say? Where there's smoke, there's fire, right? You can infer the existence of the cause from the existence of the effect.
Could there not be a smoke machine?
But if you have Geshe Tekchok, when we studied tenets with him, he said, fire can also mean there can be some kind of fires without smoke. Like, say, for instance, in England, we call these electric coils, heaters for your room, fires, right? You can have fire without smoke. So just having a cause doesn't necessarily mean that there will be an effect. But if there is an effect, such as smoke, you can infer the existence of the cause. Richard.
And maybe I'm wrong here, but it seems to me that it depends on the cause and the effect. You can infer that there is 4 from the addition of 2 plus 2. And I think that that's a valid inference. But yes, you're absolutely right. You can't infer the presence of smoke you can't infer smoke from the presence of fire.
Okay. So let's go from there. So in those whose mind possess a locus or a base, why would the grave poison afflictions not arise? So in other words, if you still are grasping to a truly existent, inherently existent feeling, why would the afflictions not arise? The earlier statement about there being craving because of the presence of feeling was criticized by Chapa and Sepak Sek Wangchuk Senge. They asserted that it is not a sound reasoning, for it involves inferring an effect in the basis of the presence of a cause. In this way, they refute Shantideva's Bodhisattvacharya. They engaged in such refutations for the following reasons. Between the two schools of thought on whether or not Shravakas and Pratika Buddhas realize selflessness of phenomena, the two schools meaning some say they don't necessarily realize emptiness of phenomena. And the Prasangika says they definitely do, right? Two schools. The latter standpoint, Prasangika, what do you say? Between the two schools of whether or not Shravakas and Pratikilas realize selflessness of phenomena, the latter standpoint was more prevalent in Tibet. Even though that's wrong, the latter standpoint meaning that they don't necessarily realize emptiness. That was more prevalent in Tibet. And as such, people were more familiar with that tradition, and they had not engaged in a comprehensive study of the scriptural sources and the reasonings of the first school of thought that they do necessarily realize emptiness. They have therefore failed to appreciate the finer points of the most profound style of philosophical reasoning of Chandrakirti. In this way, they naively attributed faults to those who are highly learned. This is a grave error. Okay, we're going to end there today. So if you want to put, I was suggesting also to some folks who said that I should make give a phrase where we ended, so you can add a note there or give a color highlight that that's where we ended. This is a grave error. Okay. So how are we doing? Paul, are you okay? Yeah, okay. Where's Jennifer? Oh, Julie. Julie, you have a question. Good.
I have a just an ordinary question.
Okay.
It's based on a situation I'm currently in. I'm in Minnesota right now. I normally live in Oregon. I'm here at Mayo Clinic for my husband who's going through cancer treatment. And right now I'm not staying at the Hope Lodge. I'm at my brother-in-law's house, but during the weekdays I stay at Hope Lodge where there's 60 cancer patients and their caregivers.
Right.
And so I have this wonderful opportunity, not only with my husband to see see suffering face on with for many different things, but you mentioned that it's a wonderful opportunity when you see suffering to use it to create merit. And I was wondering what you would recommend as just a simple daily thing I can do to create merit and remember letting go of the transitory collections while I am being there with everybody.
Right. So good question. The different things that you can do. So one doesn't necessarily have to involve wisdom. One of the main methods is on the method side. You know, when we talk about all of the practices can be included in method and wisdom. You know, method sometimes translated as skillful means. So in that regard, to do the practice of Tonglen. Have you heard of Tonglen, Julie?
Yes.
So all of the suffering, imagine, first of all, spending some time on the preliminaries, you know, recognizing that all these people are exactly equal to importance to your husband, maybe not from the worldly point of view, but they've all been equally your mother in numberless lifetimes, have helped you just as much and been loving and kind to you just as much as your husband has in this lifetime. So any preference that would think, you know, only my husband should be, you know, my focus should be just on his suffering, you know, to try to equalize that. And then to remember that they've all been your mother, been kind, and develop a aspiration to repay their kindness by eliminating their suffering, understanding the only way to do that is to achieve Buddhahood, engage in the practice of Tonglen to accumulate merit. So imagine taking on their sufferings once you've equalized them. So you can imagine probably taking on your husband's suffering more easily than other strangers. So you need to have that preliminary. Imagine taking on that suffering, what that would be like, and particularly feeling joy in thinking now they are free of that suffering. Maybe if you do it with the breathing, imagine breathing in black smoke, which epitomizes their suffering, coming down to your heart chakra. And here's the connection with the wisdom side, realizing you're not putting it on yourself, you're putting it on your self-cherishing thought. That suffering is going to have to be endured by the self-cherishing thought. So feeling some joy in that, you know, so like, it's kind of like when you're taking up a needle to an abscess or something like that, even though it hurts, you know, that it's good, I'm gonna get rid of this. So get rid of the self-cherishing thought and then send out white light from your heart in the form of your body, your merits of the past, present, and future, your possessions to those beings so that they may heal as a result of the merit that you've accumulated and so forth. That's one of the positive ways that in the Kadampa tradition, the New Kadam tradition, that was considered so important, you know, the Tonglen and so forth. Does that give you some material to think about?
Yes, no, it's a great reminder. I've done versions of Tonglen often. I'm still doing it. Lama Zopa recommended it for Dave, of course. And but I'm just in this situation and I found myself sort of numb, it's like, my human side, my humanness. It's like, I'm not numb, but I have compassion for everyone there. But also it's like, it's sort of, I don't know, but this is great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Because that's what I'm looking for, is something I can, that this kind of practice is something I've done a lot of. But the way you phrased it about, really seeing them as my mothers, equalizing them, breathing in the black smoke and purifying it, giving, having joy and having it go to my self-cherishing thought.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
then that part was really nice to remember. Thank you. And then to send that merit that I've created, past, present, and future out so that it can be used and healed by all the beings that are having suffering, including the ones at the center and my husband.
Right. The famous verse in the the Guru Puja, the Lama Chopa, where it says, just after when we recite the verse of 5 lines, about taking on the suffering and so forth, it says, when the vessel world and the inhabitants therein are obsessed, or I say are experiencing the results of our past negative actions, thinking of collective karma, calamities that come on, and undesired suffering falls like rain. Please grant me blessings to transform these adverse conditions into the path by seeing it as the exhaustion of my past negative karma. So the one way is just to think my karma is being eliminated, so things will be better in the future if I don't get angry and create more negative karma. But the more profound way to think of it is thinking of Tonglen, exhausting these negative karmas by taking them on myself, sort of like the black hole. All of these bad things are coming into the black hole of my self-cherishing thought. And, as a result of that, there will be the illumination of suffering as a result of that. Shankar, you have one last question.
No, I was going to comment because during my retreat in November and December, I was listening to Rinpoche, some of Rinpoche's teachings, and one of the things he mentioned was regarding this. And he said that one of the profound things one can do is whenever something arises that is suffering, to dedicate it to the removal of obstacles for the guru. So he mentioned, for example, Lama Lundup, I think it was old Kopan, abbot.
Mm-hmm.
And he fell down the stairs at Kopan and he hit his head and went black, went unconscious.
Mm-hmm.
And Lama Lundup had told people after that supposedly right as he was going unconscious, he thought occurred to him, oh, wonderful. This is removing yet another obstacle to Lama Zopa Rinpoche's efforts. Yes. So I thought that was so that's something I do. So that was something that was really useful.
Yeah, that's also very, very useful. Okay, thank you. So any last question? How are we doing? So next week, that we just ended it. In this way, they naively attributed faults to those who are highly learned. This is a grave error. That's where we're going to begin. Just so someone says, what page is that on in the written book?
87.
87. Okay. So
a top of 88, actually, I think.
Page 88. Okay.
Very top.
Very top. Okay. Excellent. So thank you very much. If you have a chance. Yeah.
Did you want me to put up the ending prayers or?
Yes. Yeah. I'm just going to say something first. Okay. If you have a chance to read ahead, go over this material that we've gone over so that this is very, very complicated material. This section, I'd like to read just something that Jose Cabazon, did I have it here? Oh, I don't have that here. Maybe. Do I have it? I didn't bring that up. I printed this out. Jose, in his book, A Dose of Emptiness. This is a text talking about the difficult points of emptiness from the Gelugpa tradition. Khedrubje was one of the two disciples of Lama Tsongkhapa, right? So Khedrubje in there, or in a note in that text, Jose mentioned that this is one of the most difficult sections on this section on the Hinayana, proving that the Hinayana necessarily realize emptiness. And so if in that text, which is talking about the difficult points of the Prasangika, it said it's one of the most difficult sections, it's worthy of your going back over this section again and again from the beginning until we finish this section, so that it's very clear to you. Okay, Shankar, could you put up the dedication prayers? So we began with motivation at the beginning, tried to have some semblance of bodhicitta motivation. So we've created virtuous karma during this session. Listen, even by the side of the object, in the sense of the teachings of Lama Tsongkhapa, the quotations of the Buddha, we've definitely accumulated merit. And in thinking about the implications and wisdom and so forth, we've accumulated the collection of wisdom. Due to these virtues, so here it says merits. Merits is just on the method side. It should say, it says gewadi, due to these virtues. So there are virtues due to collection of merit and virtues due to the collection of wisdom. Due to these virtues, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all migrators without exception into that enlightened state. So this is, in a sense, kind of not just prayer, it's actually dealing with some substance. It's kind of like the Tonglen. You're thinking of the merits that you've created and dedicating them so that they will bring about your own achievement of enlightenment, from which state you can lead all living beings without exception into that very same state. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has not arisen yet, and may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. And long life prayer for Lama Zopa, you, Rinpoche, who uphold the Muni's moral code, serving as the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjunath's victorious doctrine, he refers to Lama Tsongkhapa's doctrine, masterfully accomplishing magnificent prayers honoring the three jewels, Savior of myself and others, your disciples, please, please live long. And to all our gurus, Dalai Lamas, and others, eyes viewing all the infinite scriptures, you are my eye for viewing all of the infinite scriptures, supreme gateway for the fortunate who are traveling to liberation, engaging with skillful means, moved by love, all illuminating spiritual friends, please live a long and stable life. Those are what are called conventional dedications, conventional prayers. Also, with whatever understanding of emptiness you have, dedicate the merits to these goals in the emptiness of the three spheres. It's like what was just talked about in the class. There is no dedicator. I am dedicating. It's not like I should feel proud I'm dedicating. There's no self inherently existent self. There is no object dedicated to my own achievement, enlightenment, or the benefit of all sentient beings. All of those are not inherently existent. There's no process of dedicating. There's no act of dedicating. It's just a label that is designated to the succession of events taking place. This helps to dedicate the merits further when we say dedication and the emptiness of the three spheres. Having made a conventional dedication, linking up the merits, the collections with their goals, meditating on the emptiness of them helps to ensure them, those merits, not being destroyed by anger and so forth. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for your participation. Look forward to seeing you again next week. Have a good week.
Thank you, Venerable George.
Thank you, Venerable George. Thank you.
Thank you, Venerable George.